episode 4. Episode 1. Episode 4. Just making fun of this guy because last episode he said it was episode 1. It was actually episode 3. So, big moment for us. Episode 4. There's a stat out there that says that 90% of podcasts don't make it past the 3rd episode. And 90% of that 10% don't make it past episode 20. So we've passed episode 3. Now the goal is to pass episode 20. So this is a big moment for us.
Yep,
Feeling
being
good.
in the top percentile of podcasts.
So good.
And it leads into one of the topics we want to talk about, and that's consistency.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about it from our own standpoint, what it means to us, and also give some tips on how to be more consistent as well, from what we've learned from our own standpoint, from a coaching perspective, coaching other people how to become more consistent and their fitness habits. But what consistency is, first off, is doing a said thing on a repetitive basis to reach a desired result, and it leads both ways, both positively and negatively. I think we were chatting this just before this about kind of positive examples, negative examples. Positive example is a great way to think of is diet. That's a good one to as an example. First off, if you're consistent with your diet, and consistency over time, 90, 95%, 100%, you're going to reach the desired goal that you want to get to. But it goes the opposite way as well. You can be consistent in negative habits and it will take you towards something. We said that some people are consistent in smoking 10 fags a day.
That's not a good one.
Yeah.
that is not good. That's definitely negative. It does go both ways. You do see that. I think the nutrition one's it's a big one for kind of people to understand, and it's an easy one to understand. But the negative one can be same with drinking alcohol. Do you know what I mean? If you're consistently drinking alcohol every single week, then it's not good, and that's a negative habit. And it's just kind of being able to. It's about being able to kind of differentiate between the good and the bad. But yeah.
What would you say is something that you became consistent in recently that has made a difference in your life?
What I've found consistent for me this year is being more aware of what I need to do to get better. That's where I found consistency, is being aware of the things I need to do. That can be just with work, or making content, or understanding why I'm feeling a certain way. That's where I've found consistency. I almost feel like I'm doing it a little bit too much sometimes. I'm always trying to think, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? That's probably where I've found consistency, is always just try to think about, how do I put it? Always just try to think about why I'm feeling a certain way.
Right.
So it's probably being consistent and just kind of being aware.
And awareness and reflection?
Probably, yeah. Reflection. I've been really consistent with this year. Obviously, I know it's not been that long. It's been 2 months, but definitely reflection. Past few months has been a big one for me. What about you? Because obviously I know that you've
to a certain
got
extent
quite a good few things that you're quite consistent with.
To a certain extent, it's probably on a similar basis, but having that time in the morning, I now get up earlier in the morning, even if I am coming in for a 6 a.m. shift into the gym.
You're always in earlier.
I'm up earlier, and I journal in the mornings, every morning now. I do the one which we mentioned on the podcast beforehand. I do one thing that happened, one memorable thing that happened the day before.
Yeah.
But also now I journal for usually between 5 and 10 minutes on how I'm feeling that morning, why I'm feeling it that morning as well. So if I wake up and I'm already in a stressed state, it's usually from a perspective of I've got a fuckload to do that day. And then what I do with that journal is I start to write out my day as to what I actually need to get done, because when it's in your mind, it feels like
It feels heavy.
feels heavy, and it feels like
Feels like
there's
you've got a lot to do.
like literally 100 tasks to do. When if you write it out and roughly write out how long it will take as well, it's usually sometimes not even a task. It's just a thought as well.
You don't even need to do it.
Literally. So I think that helps me massively, and that's something I've
Putting your thoughts on paper.
on paper, being able to see it like in front of me and not bouncing around my head and
dissect it a little bit.
getting overwhelmed with certain things. And that's not to say that I haven't like felt certain ways because of that. I still do feel it on a like couple of day basis probably. I think that's just the crux of trying to improve yourself and trying to always juggle certain plates at a certain time.
For sure. What time do you wake up in the morning now?
So first thing we need to be in for 5:45. I get up at 4:45.
4:45.
Which I used to get up at 5, quick shower, grab my stuff
And then go.
go. But then I would feel like rushed. Feel rushed.
So I get up at 5 and I feel rushed.
Yeah, it would start my day like rushed and
Yeah.
feeling that way, like running in at 1:45, and I'm like right.
anxious and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I know, like a little bit of anxiety, to be fair, but having that, honestly, 15 minutes, probably 10 minutes would be fine as well, just to
You feel a little bit
settle
more
my brain.
calm and stuff like that starting the day. Totally, because I do wake up, as I say, I wake up at 5 and I do a lot of the time feel a little bit rushed. If I've got something that I've not done the night before or something like that, like made my breakfast or something like that, I do feel kind of rushed. I think that's definitely a good idea. One thing with the journal, obviously we spoke about that, and I think that's so beneficial. But one thing I would say about consistency, you don't need to do it every single day to be consistent. People think that consistency is every single day religiously, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing if you are every single day. But just because you maybe slip up 1 or 2 days doesn't mean that you're not a consistent person. Do you know what I mean? It just means that you've slipped up a few days. It's about kind of how you can kind of get back on the horse as quick as possible, I think. That's for me anyway.
110%. One of the best quotes that like sticks out in my mind all the time with coaching, with pretty much everything that I do, is to be consistently good over occasionally great. And it's I'm thinking about getting a tattoo like this year, and I want to do something around that because it's something I think about on a
Consistently good over occasionally great.
and
Love it.
it's so important to understand, because when we do get the mindset of right, I need to be great consistently, we can't go from being shit at something to great at it consistently. We have to build towards it, and if you're like terrible at something, you need to go from terrible to
All right.
not that terrible to all right to good to then great in the future. But being great at something is like so hard to do.
That is a process. You can't go from 0 to 100, and that's actually a conversation that I had with one of the members in Sin this week at the start of the week. She came in, she was looked quite upset, and I was like, "What's up?" And she was like, "Fucked it at the weekend, 4 days. It was just absolutely fucking. I was drinking, I was eating." And that's one thing that you need to say to people and allow them to understand. Like, there's nothing that you can do to change what you had done. Yeah, you might have fell off your kind of consistent streak, but that doesn't mean that you need to continue on that bad streak. Do you know what I mean? It's all about kind of being able to get back on to the kind of good, consistent habits that you've been doing before that kind of small slip up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like I need to tell myself that. And it's what Harry was saying on the last episode, was saying like you can know all these things, but it's until you actually can implement them in your head. And that's one thing for me. Like, I know all these things, but that's not to say that sometimes I feel like I beat myself up a little bit.
Yeah.
Say if I fall off the bandwagon a little bit with my journaling or with my usual like good eating habits, things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd probably that's a good thing to say and a good way to think.
Yeah.
When you do kind of fall off that kind of consistency.
That's
streak.
probably the biggest thing I took away from Harry's podcast. I listened to it back the other day, and the thing that keeps replaying in my mind is what he said about successful people just shorten the gap between when they're off it and when they're back on it.
Yeah.
Well, he said it in some philosophical,
Yeah.
smarter
Some
way
mad
than I just said it.
cool dino way.
Aye, if you haven't listened to that podcast yet, go listen to Harry just spin bars. Literally. And yeah, so I think there's a book as well that I always get told about called The Gap in the Gain, and it's about how short, how you make it is short from when you fuck up to when you actually get back to doing the thing, and the shorter you make that time period, the more success you're going to get in the future. So I think it's so important to think of, but that was the biggest takeaway by far, I think, with Harry for me.
Totally.
Let's get some actionable steps towards consistency.
Yeah.
I think having some feedback from people who have been listening to the podcast, a lot of them have said they've loved the little actionable steps that they've taken away. I've had many people message me saying, I've got an alarm clock, I actually don't charge my phone in my room anymore. Like just the little things that
just
make
gives
a massive difference.
Totally. It just, because it allows people to kind of take away things for themselves, because I feel like we're just two normal guys that, like, I think everyone's thinking these things, and they want to know how to get better at them. So probably the first actionable step for me for consistency is having that accountability around you. We talk about it all the time, but it's kind of having that environment is second to none. That's how you get held accountable by the people around you. We speak about things all the time, and I feel like after I've spoke to you, like, I'm like thinking in my head, I don't want to let this guy down. Like, we've had this conversation. I want to be consistent because I've already spoke about it and told Anton about this, and he's saying to me and he's giving me these tips, so I'm going to implement them, because and that's you kind of holding me accountable almost. So yeah, accountability is huge.
It's literally what we do for a living. We're not accountability coaches. I don't like saying that, but we hold people to a standard that they don't think they can get to, and it's only because we've held ourselves to a standard in the past, whether that was through another coach or whether that was through self accountability, which I can go into a wee bit as well. I think the most important accountability you can get is from someone you respect and has done it before. Like, that is probably the best. Being in an environment or a group of people who you respect and look up to is probably the top, actually. But then someone below that is a coach, a mentor, like a friend who's done it before. But self accountability is a big one for me. Here's an actionable step that's super easy. I ordered it was last year when I done 75 hard, ordered a whiteboard and wrote out 75 squares and just crossed it off every day. But I don't know what it is, there's something in being able to cross something off every day and having a big line of consistent crosses that just makes you not want to miss. And I done it for content from November. I done 3 months, November, December and January. I done 1st of November right through to the 31st, 1st of December right through to the 31st. Is there a 31st of November?
31st of November?
I don't think there is. 30th of November.
You're asking the wrong guy.
And then January 1st to the 31st, and that was to do one post on my grid or a reel and 4 stories, and I've done it every single day for the 3 months. And since then, I've done it every single day, like for the past 13 days or something in February. And I think that is literally from just the consistency of doing it beforehand. I don't want to miss it. Like, it's got to late at night a couple of nights and I've been like, shit, I've not posted today.
Well, it's the kind of undeniable stacked proof. At the end of the day, we speak about it all the time, and I think Harry said it in the last podcast as well. It's the undeniable stacked proof, and you don't want to, like, you now understand that you can do it.
Yeah.
So what's the point in stopping after that? I feel like that's kind of what your mindset is, kind of subconsciously thinking like, well, I know I can do it for 3 months, so why can't I just do it every single day?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
I think another kind of point to that is I had a strong why of wanted to do it, why I wanted to do it.
What was your reason why?
So there was two reasons. What the main reason being, one of the main reasons being was that I wasn't being consistent with it and it was annoying me. I was quite erratic with it, where I was posting content and like then I would go off it for 5 days, post once, go off it for a week. I was like, I just couldn't get into the rhythm of it. The second and most important why is always there was no
rhythm of it because you couldn't get a rhythm of it because there was no rhythm.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have that set in place. That's what it was, wasn't it?
Didn't have any sort of challenge to follow, any structure towards it. But like the main driver and the main reason why, which is so important for consistency, this is probably quite good to talk about, is having a strong why behind it. And the strong why was, if I post this bit of content and it helps 2 people change their mindset, change their habits on one certain thing, that could genuinely change their life. Like
totally.
That kind of driver is the strongest driver. For me, my values are like highly on helping others, and content is an easy way to do that. I can do it to the masses, and like you're learning yourself about content and how people are now messaging you off the back of things like, mate, I've just done that, I've just tried that and it's really helped me. And I get that message now on a consistent basis because I'm posting consistently and because I'm like getting better at content because I'm doing it more consistently.
That's what it is. It's the more and more you do it, the better you get at it, and the more and more you do it as well, the more people are going to message you saying that, and that just makes it even easier. Do you know what I mean? So that's consistency down to a T. That you've built that up from being consistent, which is a great example of what consistency is.
Perfect. And that kind of segues into our next topic.
Yeah.
And we wanted to talk a little bit about belief in our own selves, but belief in general, self-belief. It's something we were chatting out about, it was last week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Last week, and we said we were going to speak about it on the pod. And we always talk about the story of Roger Bannister. And if you don't know who he is, he was a guy who first broke the 4-minute mile. And at that point, it was 1950s. Like, everyone thought it was not humanly possible to do so. And he set out to break it. And like he says, I'm going to break it. He believed in himself that he could. And in 1952, I'm sure it was, he broke the record. 3 minutes 59.4, I think it was. So literally just broke it by a second. And in the 70 years since, 1,700, or in fact over 1,700 people have broke that. And it just came from him believing that he could do it first off, but then breaking the barrier, and then it just set off a chain of events of other people like, right, if he can do it, then I can do it. I think it just takes one person that is being able to be seen. He was obviously like on the papers and all that, and like other people can then believe that it can happen. So I truly believe that, mate. I think that if someone else can do it, then I can do it to a certain extent. I've got that belief now.
I've actually got that belief as well now, but see 2024, that was probably my biggest year in terms of like actually believing in myself and actually believing that I could do cool things, because I'd done so much. Like, I know I've just said it, but it's like that stacked proof. That's what gives you the belief. Do you know what I mean? And it's genuinely just down to doing the thing. It's just down to doing the thing that you set out to do and doing that over and over and over again. Do you know what I mean? That's how you get that belief in yourself. And as I say, it's not easy. It's not easy, especially in this kind of, in the UK, you're kind of taught to like not believe in yourself almost and kind of settle for the bare minimum. But it's only until you kind of start to think and start to believe in yourself that you can actually do some really, really cool things. And as I say, 2024 was huge for me, and I've done so many cool things, and that's why I'm here just now. like working with Sin and doing coaching, because I took that leap and believed that I could do it. What I was like always saying to people in that period of time when I was making that transition from plumbing to PT was, I can never fail, because the only reason that I'm gonna fail is down to like me stopping, like trying to get to the place where I want to be. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like if I was to stop trying, yes, that's when I fail. But that wasn't even a thought in my head. I just had that belief in myself and kind of took that leap and had the courage to do so, and I kind of came out the end of it with a whole new kind of load of belief in myself.
Yep.
So that's kind of my experience with belief.
Well, I think it's probably quite important to ask the question of, like, you now believe in yourself with a lot of certain things. Fitness, your own physique now, you're starting to build that undeniable stack of proof.
For sure.
Last year, or let's say 2023, because that's when you said that that like you didn't have that belief in yourself. Yeah. What's running through your mind back then? Like, so 2 years, Aidan 2 years ago, what was running through your mind in terms of yourself, in terms of belief in yourself?
Probably not a lot, if I'm honest, mate. Probably not a lot. There was close to no belief. It's still a bit of a struggle, I think. I don't know about you, but I do believe in myself with a lot of things, but there's still a good few things that I don't really believe myself for. Not really too sure what that's down to. It might just kind of be my personality. But like 2023, because I was I kind of almost like settled for the bare minimum, and that's all I was doing. Like, I had nothing there to show that I could do something like that. Like, I didn't do good at school. I didn't do anything like that. I wasn't academic whatsoever. So I was probably quite right to think that, like, I shouldn't be able to do this. But as I say, it was only until I started getting out of my comfort zone and starting kind of pushing myself, that's when I started to believe in myself. So yeah, 2023 I probably didn't have a lot at all.
Yeah, I think you touched on an important thing there, and what limiting beliefs are, and this is something when I worked with a mental performance coach was a big thing that they educate on is limiting beliefs and the story we tell ourselves in our own head about ourselves. And it's literally, going back to your thoughts or your own reality, it's literally a story in your mind. So, for example, you just said about you not getting good grades in school, which most people automatically will say in their own head, they'll be like, I'm not smart, I'm dumb, so I'm not going to read another book in my life. Some people go like finish school and then don't read anything ever again in terms of reading a book, or like probably more than half the population, I would say. And
I'd never read a book since like my first book was 2024. I didn't read a book until 2024.
James and the Giant Peach.
Cat in the Hat, bro.
And yeah, like, we all place limits on ourselves, and we tell ourselves our own stories in our head because of something previous that happened, or even from like our own parents that can come from. That's something I learned from the mental performance coach, was that your environment from literally the day you're born right through until your like early childhood, right through to school, they are really, really important years for shaping your brain, and that you start seeing things that shape your reality and shape the stories in your head. So if, for example, you come from like a family or like a friend group who really didn't believe in you and called you names, like treated you like shit, then you're probably going to believe these stories for good.
Yeah.
Until you find someone else who starts believing in you a little bit more. And I think that's the importance of coaching. Like, we see so many people come in the door at Sin, like so many people like on a daily basis who don't particularly believe in themselves, and like we have no idea where they've been brought up from until we actually speak to them, and then you start to break a little bit of barriers as to why they feel that way, why they don't believe in themselves, and we are there to just inject that belief in them, because as I said, like, if someone else can do it, I can do it, and if I can do it, someone else can do it.
Yeah.
If you really believe.
For sure. 1,000,000%. It's a good way to think about it as well. Like, what does a world look like to where you put no limitations on yourself? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would probably be a completely different world to what we're living in just now. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, totally.
Amazing. Let's go on to our third and final topic.
Let's do it. Let's go.
And it's something that me and Aidan have been chatting about this week in particular. And Aidan said he's more than happy to chat about his experience with it.
Yeah,
I'm more than happy to speak about my experience with it as well, and that's relationship with food. Obviously, that's something that we both like chat to clients about on a weekly or a daily basis, depending on what it is. And I think relationship with food is really at the base of the importance of eating. Like, a lot of people will say, oh, it's calories, macros, nutrients, supplements, like being calories the most important at the bottom. But if you don't have a decent base of or a decent relationship with food at the bottom, all the
Or a
things,
decent perspective.
different perspective on food at the bottom, then all the things, calories,
Don't
macros,
matter.
it doesn't matter too much. And yeah, relationship with food. I want to maybe ask you about your experience, how you're feeling at the moment with it. Yeah, if you want to chat about that.
Yeah, mate. So that's the thing. It's always been a kind of hard kind of topic for me, just because when I was younger, I was a little bit chubby. And I got picked on a little bit about it.
Yeah.
But it's always been a kind of thing that's always on my mind. Is like, what am I gonna eat today? Like, things like that. Like, I've always kind of maybe like looked at food as good or bad. And I don't necessarily feel like that's probably the healthiest way to look at food. Feel like it's just food at the end of the day, and it's how you kind of approach how you eat these things. I feel like for me, my relationship with food can be really like emotion driven. It can be really emotion driven, like we spoke about it on a couple podcasts ago, about like trying to like almost like change your state. I don't obviously go out too much or go out like drinking or get the pleasures of doing things like that. So I think I kind of always, like, once I've done all the things that I do enjoy, always kind of seek a little bit more enjoyment. And for me, that is food. And I've always found it quite hard to manage it and kind of like find how to have a good perspective on food. Because realistically, like, if even us talking about saying like relationship with food, you should have relationship with people, not food. Do you know what I mean? You should have perspectives on food. And it's just one of those things that it's an ongoing journey, and I feel like a lot of people struggle with it their full life, and not a lot of people want to talk about it, because I think that for me anyway, see when I've had like episodes of like binge eating and stuff like that, I retract into myself, and I don't feel good. I don't feel like my energetic way. I don't feel like, I feel quite anxious and things like that. And beforehand, I never used to like to talk about it, because I probably was a little bit ashamed. I was a little bit ashamed, and it's weird to say that, because you wouldn't think that would bring that food would bring you that. Do you know what I mean? But it's just down to kind of, as you say, like how you've been brought up. We're talking about like your whole belief system and stuff like that. Your whole beliefs and kind of perspective around food is kind of molded as you grow up as well. So it's just one of those ones. I feel like day by day it's a struggle, but I'm slowly getting better and just looking to kind of make sure that I'm changing. Like, I've not got a relationship with food, but I've got a perspective on food and wanting that to be a good one.
Yeah. I want to touch on a few things that you mentioned there that are mega important. I think the first one being is what you said right at the start, and that's the way you grew up.
Yeah.
And that was, you said that you almost labelled yourself as the chubby kid to a certain extent. But like, that's maybe still a little bit inside you, and totally. That where you think that way, even though like you live like an athlete now. but like the stories we tell ourselves stick in our own mind. It's the exact same with what I've experienced in the past, and what I know loads of clients have experienced in the past, and that's like the person who goes out and stays out the longest or drinks the most. Like me and my pals at uni used to like almost have a battle with who could drink it the most, and like, oh, you're only having one bottle of Mad Dog, like
Shite bag.
and like if you build the story around yourself that you are the chubby kid, or you are the maddest out of your friend group in terms of drinking, you will act that way, and it will portray in your lifestyle. What you focus on becomes your reality always, and that's probably still maybe a little bit inside you. But
Totally, mate. Like I was gonna say as well, like when I was a wee kid, like I can remember every single time someone said something to me. Do you know what I mean? And that's what that stuff does stick to you. Like what you're saying right now, that's completely true.
Yeah,
completely true.
And what you talked about with like the shame side of things, like that's the whole cycle of eating and like overeating. Usually it's having extra food or like binging, and then you have that shame, you have that guilt towards yourself, you feel that way, and then you want to remove the emotion by getting distracted with something else, and then again it's usually some sort of food. You go towards have more food, and then the cycle just continues and continues. You get more, you feel more guilty, you feel more shame.
That's exactly how it goes.
And I think an actionable point is understanding that everyone goes through this, and that we're all human. That's something that I said to you when we were chatting about this. How important being understanding that you are a human and you're gonna do that. Like
you're going to overeat.
Yeah.
And if you think about it and kind of reshape it into almost like it's a blessing to get a chance to overeat. Do you know what I mean? You get the opportunity to, and it's just kind of reshaping it like that. Like as you say, you are human and you're gonna make mistakes, because like no one doesn't at the end of the day, and it's just as you say, kind of having that awareness around it, and knowing kind of what's the best kind of actionable point to go towards.
Yep, I think this is probably a very important podcast for a lot of people to listen to, because probably one of the most important things for like your goal with it is fat loss, is having nutritional awareness, and addressing it, because most people go through these patterns and behaviours because they have their whole life, but they don't understand why it's happening, and they're almost not aware of it.
Yeah.
But
that's probably one of the reasons why I wanted to speak about it, not like to get it out there and allow people to understand that as well. But also like I feel like a lot better when I speak about it to you as well, because I feel like you understand it as well. So like just getting that out there and allowing people to understand is always going to be beneficial.
Yeah, and the reason I understand is because I've went through the exact same process, and that.
Where was that in terms of like what age were you when you went through that kind of?
So, I'm the exact same as you, in that there was a couple of points throughout my life where I deemed myself as chubby, and I actually remember a teacher called me chubby at one point in school, and I remember exactly who it was.
Fucking bam.
I know. And he said it in a kind of off the way comment, and it was in front of like a big group of lads, and I honestly, like, I just kind of shoved it off at the time, but I always remember it like so much, and like little comments, people don't realise how much it like impacts them like on in life, and that's something that I remember about in particular. But the more I learned about myself, and especially starting my personal development journey, kind of say during lockdown in particular, that's when I started realising certain habits, certain behaviours, because I started looking within rather than out with, and it's still a constant work in progress, because I still find myself feeling a certain way, and I'm the same as you, I don't drink anymore, so I look to food for comfort a little bit.
Totally.
I'm not as bad as I used to be, I have more control on it, but I think that's just through the process of addressing it, understanding it, working with coaches in the past, and
because it takes a lot of time. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like it goes back to what we were saying at the start of the episode. Like you know that it's probably not right to eat that full tub of Ben and Jerry's, but like you
But
might
damn,
just do
that
it. But damn, that shit tastes so flipping good. That's what it is. It's one thing, no, but it's another thing. Kind of actually implementing and being able to, and that's just, I think it's just like constant attempts at trying to get better at it. If that makes sense. And you're never just gonna get it bang on like that.
No.
It's a process. It is. It's definitely a process, and if I'm being honest, I wouldn't say I'm even close to the finished article. Do you know what I mean? So, it's just about being aware and kind of going along in that journey.
Yep. Addressing it, working on it, and being a little bit more accepting of yourself, I think, is one of the most important things, and understanding that you're human. I think people don't accept certain things about themselves, and they block it out, they bottle it up, and then that's how all this stuff happens. So
Totally.
addressing it, speaking to someone you trust about it, whether that's a coach, whether that's a friend, like a trusted friend, having a chat with someone, as you said, like when it comes off of your chest, you automatically feel that almost like your shoulders dip in,
Totally.
the weight off your shoulders.
Like when we first spoke about this, and you told me you had the same kind of lip problem.
Yeah.
I was like, it made me feel so much better, because I was like, well, like other people are doing this. Like other people have got this struggle.
Yeah.
And you can almost relate a little bit, and kind of bash heads together to find out the kind of best protocol, and that's kind of what we're doing just now.
So yeah, I think that's the exact reason why we do the podcast, is to come clean and be authentic, and
Totally.
say that we still have problems, and it's stuff that we coach on a daily basis. It's important to talk about, because you don't get a lot of people like being completely honest
For sure.
about certain things.
Like a year ago, I would have not spoke about this whatsoever. But it's just, as long as it's, I know like this conversation will, if it helps one person out there, then that's worth speaking about for sure. So totally.
Amazing. And on that note, if one thing that we said, you took something from it, you related to it, there's probably a friend or someone in your life that could do with hearing it as well. If you can, share it with someone.
Share that.
Share the love.
Share the love.
We've had loads of positive messages, and we really appreciate it. We appreciate all the shares.
Appreciate it so much. Honestly, it's been massive. And it just makes us want to do more and more and more. Obviously, we started this just for us to, and to find out that a lot of people are enjoying it just makes it so much easier, so much better to do, so much more exciting. So
Yeah.
and
we're chasing that 1%, that top percentile status.
Yeah,
We've only got 16 more to go.
16 more. That's easy.
16 more.
That's easy.
So that's 16 more Thursdays.
Slight work. Gonna be shredded by then.
Better stay away from that Ben and Jerry's.
Hell no. Right, sick, bro.
Let's
Class.
finish it there.
Let's go.